Skyrim is an interesting game when it comes to its level scaling. Since the game is open world, you can wander in any direction, and to avoid beefgate situations that can be seen in some games such as Fallout New Vegas, where at level 1 you fight the lowest level creatures and bandits, and when you have leveled up substantially, that is where things get interesting with high leveled spellcasters or dragon spawnings. And more than likely it'll take well over 50 hours, perhaps over 100 before you see the fun things spawn. Today I want to see what Skyrim will be like if you were to start at the level cap, or pretending this is New Game Plus. So what exactly is New Game Plus? Well, it is a pretty common thing seen in RPGs where once you beat the game you can replay the game except to carry over certain things. Given my history, I'm somewhat a professional at this. Some games let you carry over everything, other games just keeps a level, or you can choose what you carry over. Personally, I liked how Starfield did New Game Plus, but that is kind of spoilerly, but then again, like anyone cares about that game anyways. But I will be basing my New Game Plus run off of Starfield. Mostly the only things that get to be transferred is my levels and perks. As for items, I have to start completely over, but I do give myself a cash donation because with an easy glitch, money is meaningless anyways. Well, Skyrim doesn't have a New Game Plus transfer option, so instead I'll be starting the game over, but in Helgen I will set every skill at 100 and my character will be at level 81 for the entire run. More or less after level 78 the game stops scaling with very few changes after that. Before the introduction of legendary resets, this was where the level cap was, so we will roll with this. No real rules for the run, as this will be more of a curiosity run instead of a serious run. So with that all the way, let's get started. So for building my character, I'm going with an orc today. Since every skill is at 100, starting stats don't really matter, just the abilities, and today I want Berserker Rage because I want to go for a very, and I mean very, funny build. Something I rarely see. Anyways, normal introductory stuff is normal. I'm running through the fires until I get unbound from my binds, and I can start power leveling my character through a totally legit way. So when allocating my 80 skill points, I'm going to be going for a stealth build, but not necessarily an archery. I want to use archery a little bit, but I want to go with an assassin build. As for other perks, I really want to buff up my damage, holding back on decapitation since YouTube isn't a fan of people losing their heads for non-fan related reasons. Also, I'll be hearing the level up theme for quite a while. You have to play the theme 80 times after all. So for the introduction, I did a test run beforehand, and the soldiers in the introduction are all set to level 1, so as obvious as it is, they don't last very long. Anyways, if you crouch and attack within a few frames with the level 100 sneak perk, you can initiate a backstab and do anywhere from times 6 to times 15 damage. So yeah, it is pretty funny. As for the rest of the intro, I breezed past everything, fighting the bear at the end before heading outside to the real challenge. I walked down the road a little bit to the nearby friendly introduction bandit camp, where they were all leveled up to highway and outlaw levels, which are level 5 to 14. At least they are in fur armor and iron weapons, so they weren't that much of a concern. But I will want to get better weaponry soon. Also, I'm in basically rags, so that doesn't help. I do get an iron dagger off of one of the bandits, and I aggressively teabag to finish off the other bandits. Next up is Ember Shard Mines, everyone's favorite first dungeon, and here the level scaling didn't really do too much, almost everyone here was just the bandit variety. Also already found my disco ball, so that's fun. Only leveled bandit here was an outlaw, nothing too threatening. Next up is within Riverwood. Here I checked Hilda's level, and she was only level 15, and for the most part NPCs rarely get past the teens for leveling. Anyways, I traveled to the vendor in town, and he already has some upgraded items, which is pretty nice for Lucan's early game status. I then checked Durak's level, and turns out he doesn't really cap, so he's already wandering around at level 81. I don't do Dawnguard stuff this run. I had more than enough during my Serana run, but Dawnguard followers also don't cap, making them amongst the strongest characters in the game. I also talked to Elvor, who gives you a bunch of free stuff, but even at level 81, they are crap. Before heading into Whiterun, I did help out with the giants, except in my wild swinging must have hit one of the companions as they were all coming after me. Well, is that what I get for saving the day? Rude. Well, since it's more or less tradition, I traveled to my vendor chest to see if they have anything in store. They do have some decent stuff, no ebony or other high level weaponry, but at least the healthy potions are nice. At this current point, I want to get as prepared as I can. Well, I had some things I had in mind, and I traveled into Whiterun and, oh hey. Yeah, the Ebony Warrior is the ultimate super boss, and my effort was very much in vain. Yeah, the main target of this run is going to be this warrior, so time to get preparing for a grand showdown. I then grabbed any weapons and armors I can from the blacksmith, and upgraded my dagger. This little steel dagger is going to get me very far, at least in the early game. I then traveled into Dragon's Reach and talked to the Jarl, and then put some enchantments on my gear. Though I forgot I had the double enchanting perk for quite a long while, but oh well. I will try to upgrade later. Also, I talked to Farengar and he has some much higher level spells than he normally has. Nice when you have high magic skills. I give as much Fortify one-handed skills as I can, then I can feel prepared enough for Bleak Falls Barrow. With all my prep work, the bandits outside the tower go down really quickly, and with my sneaking I can take him out in a couple hits at most. Also, bandit marauders are the highest level non-bandit chiefs out there. Too bad they're also effectively one-shots. As for the false enter, I can get the sneak hits for effective one-shots. The first 3 in the bandits here are all level 1, so no issues here. Further in, normally a bandit dies from a trap, but with my sneak skill at max I can solve the puzzle before he notices and flips a switch, and he gets to live, and he just wanders around. I snuck around him, letting him fight some skeevers, until suddenly he dies from one. All that effort for nothing. Deeper inside, the winded frostbite spider gets one shot, and as for the Draugr section, they were all ranging from restless to whites, or about level 6 to 13. Since my sneak skill is at 100, I can sneak up on the sleeping Draugr and silence them before they can do much of anything. I think the most surprising thing in this dungeon dive is on the snowy bridge. Normally there is a Draugr here, but today, it is a frost troll. At the very least, they can be backstabbed all the same. The last enemy of note for Bleak Falls Barrow is the Overlord at the end. Instead of being something like a Death Overlord, it came in as a Scourge Lord, or about level 24. Probably since Bleak Falls has a low level cap, they probably didn't want Dragon Priest or something thrown at new players. Well, I did the usual story beats until the first required dragon fight, while also checking more levels. Delphine is level 30, local guards cap at level 50, and the guard that warns you about the dragon is only level 1. How pathetic. As for Mirmulnir, today they spawned as a frost variant. In my test run I did before I stopped recording, which was basically around here, it spawned as an ancient, so yeah, it can be fun. Yeah, the frost dragon went down easily enough, but I feel karma will catch up and smite me down really soon. Also, the dragon bones and scales will be very invaluable to this run, since I can actually use them. I relayed the good news, and brought Lydia along, who is level 50. I figured, why not let her tag her along? I expect her to die before too long. I then crafted myself a dragonbone dagger, so that will help me out in the damage department immensely. Though I forgot to sharpen it and enchant it, but oh well. With business done in town, I decided to start the climb up to High Hrothgar, and on my way there, oh boy, I came across so many bears it was almost unbearable. During the climb up, at first it was more bears, and then when the snow started falling, I came across even more frost trolls. Thankfully, I'm able to take them down with little fuss. As for the static frost troll, I just gave him a dental job. Skipping past the boomers' initiations besides Greybeard's breaking gates, next stop is Usengrov, and I figured I could probably walk my way there. Curious how the local dungeons are like. Giants at least can be snuck up on and taken out with ease, just gotta slash your ankles I guess. At Silent Moon Camp, I had a tricky time because of Frost Mage at the bottom slowing me down. Meanwhile, a mage up top kept on blasting me with fireballs from up high, taking me down to pretty low health. Eventually I could weave around the great balls of fire, and the bandits can be taken down. Sadly, bandits cap out level 28, so this will be the height of their powers. Just chiefs will naturally have better armor. Next up in my travels is Labyrinthian. Normally this place is a hard detour, but at least I can have some fun clearing out the frost troll population. Once the trolls were all taken out, I decided to climb up to the nearby dragon den. What is the worst that can happen? Oh. Yeah, legendary dragons are amongst the hardest enemies in Skyrim to take down. Probably the only super bosses that you can refight. They are the strongest dragons in the game at level 75, and are basically the last killing enemy in the overworld. So for my 9 IQ play to take the dragon down, I'd play around Labyrinthian for cover, but since I enjoy chaos, I thought I could bring the dragon down to Morthal. I mean, it's only a quick jog down the road. I could pelt at it through the trees, and eventually it came to town. Sadly, I couldn't focus on it. I had some cultists to deal with. Sorry, cultist adepts. Well, they behaved like normal cultists, and I could refocus my attention on the dragon. With the drained vitality, I was given the NPC's troubles. Then, because the dragon is a coward, it retreated into Labyrinthian, so I gave chase. It landed in a glitched state and Lydia joined the fight. I thought this would be the end for her, but she did a good job at keeping the worm distracted until it finally went down. Lydia is putting in the work and I haven't given her anything. Yeah, dragons are going to be terrifying this run. Well, with my work here done, I decided to walk into Usengrov and start that dungeon, but first gotta give the apprentice necromancer a lesson in stabbing. As for Usengrov, the intro part is terrifying because the mages down here are arc level, or level 46, but by playing stealthily they can all go down. Problem is that the Draugr here are now Deathlord level, so they can be very annoying with their high health pools, plus I can't really get my stealth attacks in, but this might also be because Lydia is with me. And if you have NPCs fighting enemies, then the enemies will be always engaged in combat and you can't get the sneak hits off easily. Well, before too long the intro Draugr are all done, and thankfully at this point, no more Draugr were that threatening through the rest of the dungeon. Plus the bowmen down here are also at level 1, so they get chopped down really quickly. The only other interesting thing here is because my sneak is so high, the boss leveled spider does not drop down from the ceiling, so that is nice. A little less nightmare fuel for me. Oh well, another multiverses paper is mine, and time to head back to Riverwood. Well, I say that, but I figured a little more prep work wouldn't hurt. I got a dragon coming up really soon that I'm kind of afraid of. I walked into Riften and stabbed a level 1 Grelog, still a very easy kill, and I traveled into Windhelm to tell Arventus the good news. Yeah, Dark Brotherhood, here I come. I then take a boat over to Solstein because there is an enchantment from the blacksmith I really want. It took quite a while, but eventually I get a weapon with a Chaos enchantment. This enchantment has a chance to deal both fire, frost, and or shock damage on each hit, and each element has a 50% chance of prompting, and at 1/8 of the time, all 3 damages are procted, and stacks with augmented perks. So yeah, this enchantment is really busted. I don't plan on doing any Solstheim stuff today, at least for now. Normally the island is done at a high level anyway, so I returned to Riverwood to get the ball rolling on Salakanir, and I enchanted some Chaos on my dagger and bow, which now deals a bit more damage. Also yes, I forgot about adding on more enchantments. I got my letter and went to nap time, overachieved on my goal, then left the shack to pick up my Dark Brotherhood goodies. I won't be doing the quest line, but the reason why I went through all this is for the gauntlets, which doubles backstab damage, so it's normally a times 15 multiplier attack, now does times 30. And if I use Berserker Rage, that goes up to a times 60. If I get a backstab, it might as well be a one-shot, but we will see. So for Salakanir, I thought it would be nothing to know much like with Myrmilnir. Salakanir is a legendary dragon. Thankfully I have to back up with this fight, but this fight can be pretty dangerous. But thankfully the dragon doesn't have that much health, well in comparison with normal legendary dragons. But yeah, not something I want to see. But by playing around some rocks the dragon can go down, but before my next dungeon dive, I take the time to get in some dragon scale armor, and then enchanting it. If Salakanir can be this threatening, I hate to see how Alduin scales. I also turn in the Golden Claw eventually and get 1200 gold, which is the level scaled gold will be at this level. So at this point I wanted to do the Potama quest. A multi-horde battle with some Draugr sounded fun, but stripping in front of Malborn was a much higher priority. I then departed for the embassy to get that quest done. I do find it funny how unobservant the Thalmor are, that some idiot in a bone attire would walk around and take them out. The Thalmor do level up into the 40s, especially the wizards, and they are wearing glass armor to be more intimidating, but they all go down quick enough. It is pretty fun to sneak around and assassinate targets, hence why sneak is my preferred playstyle in Skyrim. All the Thalmor went down really easily surprisingly, even Rulindel who is only level 40, but their health might not scale all that much. Plus I am sneaking after all. Inside the jail when I tried to kill the Thalmor, Malborn got the kill cam. Funnily enough, the strongest character in the entire section is the prisoner, who is the same level as the Dragonborn and has a lot of health. And it's also pretty funny when he died. Well, with that distraction done, I talked to Falk to start the Potama quest line, but since I was in the area, I decided to do Meridius quest. I've had the disco ball for long enough. The view is quite something, just not that fun with the fear of heights. The dungeon itself is not very long, just full of shades, who all happen to be skilled with the Dragonborns, just not in health. As for the final room, I should have fought Malkran as intended. I want to do the generic stealth archer, and it is very effective at skipping the fight. Nobody saw it coming. Oh well, I'm back to my high highs and the quest is done. Next up is Wolf Skull Cave, and since I did the quest in the last run, I'll try to keep things brief. The mages were all pretty low leveled, and I ended up sniping the ritual master on top of the keep, ending the entire quest line very quickly. It pays to be a stealth archer after all. Also, there was quite a lot of chaos on the walls. I wanted to do the Wolf Fiend battle for later, but actually never got the letter to do the quest for the rest of the run, but oh well. Yeah, at least there's other multi-Draugr fights I could do. Well, after cleaning up the place, I got my gold, and next up, I decided it was a good time to go crawl through sewers. Things really were not that interesting for the sewer dive. Besides, I should mention I dismissed Lydia at this point. I just do a good little stabby in the backy. None of the initial enemies really leveled up beyond their starting gear. Fine by me. As for the Warrens, the Thalmor down here were the same variety found in the embassy, and I mostly just snuck past all of them. I enlist Esbern to the cause. He caps out at a meek level 30, but oh well. The escapes just had higher level Thalmor, but nothing too strenuous. Thankfully, they cannot summon Dermorlord or something crazy like that. Before long, we escape the tunnels and discipline a very naughty kitty. Next up in Riverwood, it's some talking and some story segments that nobody really cares about. And next up is Alduin's Well, so I think now is a good time to do some faction quests. Not going to complete quest lines through their entirety, but rather showcasing some interesting encounters. The first of the 2 quest lines I want to do is the College of Winterhold. Thankfully I can pass the speech check to get in test free. Literally one of the few speech checks in the game that is worth doing. Before heading into Saarthal, I wanted to talk to Septimus, and since I'm omnipotent, I click to Cluck and get sent straight to the Chill. Inside this special jail you keep everything, but to escape you have to fight some Frost Atronarchs. Yeah, they crumble to my power. Plus I had some Horkers to back me up. The nice thing about the Chill is that it's literally next to Septimus Outpost, so that was a very quick excursion. I stole my items, and then started Saarthal. I sped my way through the dungeon. There really wasn't that many Deathlords here. Probably since this is supposed to be an early quest, they didn't want to completely overwhelm players. And any Deathlords I do come across were dispatched in a timely fashion. More time for me to solve slightly more complicated puzzles than usual. As for the boss at the end, I waited until 12th year play with a ball and I could crouch stab the boss for an effective one-shot. The next quest in the college questline is gathering some reading materials. Oh boy, my favorite. On my way to the dungeon, I was jumped by a bear and watched a civil war break out. I should probably join in on that party at some point. I snuck my way through the dungeon. Most mages here were not that powerful, only a couple of archers I saw here. What was powerful was the Nightlord vampires here, which are level 60 introduced in Dawnguard DLC, which are amongst the strongest fodder enemies in the game. Being the master assassin that I am, I do get a good dopamine rush sneaking around and effectively slaughtering my prey. Though I do have to force my way through a couple Storm Atronarchs, brute force wins the day. As for the collar, a simple crouch stab one-shots her, and I can grab my bucks. Easy peasy, I talk to my NPCs to start the next quest, exploring the midden, except if you know where you can go right to the Augur in just about a minute, loads included. The longest part of the quest, like 75% of it, is listening to the unskippable dialogue at 1 word a minute. The next stop is the world's most boring Dwarven dungeon. On my way there I did revel in some revelers, and Maik was also there. I made some new friends, and made the Maik run in fear. Wish you had the 100 athletics in Skyrim now, Khajiit. Anyways, Mzulft is a very boring dungeon. Dwarven spiders aren't really all that powerful, even in their final forms. They just explode in sparks like most PCs when trying to run city skylines too. I think the main threats here for now are the Kharas, Hunters, and Reapers, especially the Hunters having 600 health. But 30 times damage cleans them up really quickly. As for the Fulmer, my build destroys Fulmer because they are blind, and I can just sneak right up to them and take them out, which is very nice because they're all at the Warmonger level, the highest level Fulmer in the game at 900 health, and being able to still one-shot them, I am feeling very confident in my build now. The DPS test will be coming up very soon though. The last thing here is a surprise Dwarven Centurion Master, which also gets picked off in one shot. Sneak broken, please don't fix. While I wrap up the quest by chilling out the machine, then returning to Winterhold. The entire reason I did the entire quest line is because I want to show off the single strongest enemy in Skyrim. It isn't the Ebony Warrior, it isn't Karstag, it isn't the hired thugs in sweet armor that Septimus hired because I stole his keys. It is the bloody magical anomalies. They do not cap in level, and they're always 1.7 times your level, so I'm dealing with effectively 10 level 141 enemies, if only level actually means anything. Now the real thing is that they scale in HP, which means they have about 1700 health. Thankfully with my chaos enchantments and high DPS they don't pose too much of a threat, they just take a long while to take down. Doesn't help that Arniel is packing fists. And basically that is everything I want to do for the College of Winterhold. I guess next up is Zaftan to get that done, and I actually remembered. On my way there, Vilkas and Rika were taking on a snowy sabercat, so I offered my help. I think they forgave me for my oopsies. Anyways, Zaftan behaves like basically every other Dwarven dungeon, so not too much to discuss. And plus I do this dungeon in 99% of my runs anyways. Near the end, the Dwarven Centurion didn't level up. Since this is most players' first Dwarven dungeon, they did not want to pack too much heat. Also, the duo at the end is in their basic attire, so they were effectively retired. While inside Blackreach, I did backstab a Centurion Master, so that was pretty fun. While I'm inside the Mushroom Land, there is one target I could fight against, and that's a dragon down here. I rang the dinner bell and the dragon came out to play. Thankfully it was just an ancient dragon and not some legendary dragon. In comparison, this fight was very easy to take down, and mind you I was playing things pretty safe and cautiously. Well, I grabbed my super easy roll of tissue that I didn't have to put too much effort into getting, and I was starting to feel a little thirsty, so I decided, why not, let's declare war. So I enlisted into the Imperials. On my way to the required fort, a blood dragon came down for a snack, and this is a perfect demonstration why level scaling is very important as I effortlessly carved through the dragon. Should have been at least an ancient. As for the fort itself, I am very sneaky, somewhat, as sneaky as running up to a foe and crouch stabbing them. Also, one bandit really didn't care what was going on. I reported my success to Rika, and next up it's a jagged crown. Well, on my way there, some vampires indulged in the ransacking of the vigilance without me, so I paid them right back. I am kinda surprised they weren't Nightlord variants, but oh well. As we're carving through the Stormcloak soldiers, they're all capped at level 20, and they go down really quickly. Then again, the soldiers are generally fodder enemies, so they're meant to be taken down in a couple hits. Strength in numbers after all. Less effort for me to think, and I don't have to stop for long in my dungeon dive. As for the boss fight at the very end, it was just a battle with 3 Death Lords, so I became Lord of Death and snuck attack all 3. They probably could have destroyed my backup in seconds. I relay the good news to Tullius, and next up is Whiterun. I take the time before the battle to re-enchant my gear, since I remembered finally about the dual enchantment perk. And one of my daggers I put on a very spicy lifesteal enchantment. As for the battle of Whiterun, I am just a spinning ball of death. I just run up to the soldiers and they all just crumple. Makes sense really, they're all supposed to be weak anyways. Don't think it would be the best design to be fighting hundreds of soldiers geared in ebony armor, though I think it would have made things more interesting at least. Whiterun was successfully protected by a super soldier, and next up I wanted to do a fort cleanout to see what that would be like. On my way there I watched a necromancer get whacked by one of their own summons, and said zombie immediately died. Oops. Well, I got my mission, but not before demolishing a frost dragon. Then I hiked my way to the end. Instead of wanton violence, I just picked a letter from the courier since 100 pickpocket, then delivered the wrong information to the general. As for the fort battles, the battles play about the same as they did at level 5, just a lot of enemies and they don't have a lot of health. Since they are always engaged in battle, I can do my crouch stab, but I mean, when they all fall this easily, I don't really think that would be needed. Since I was not getting my Wolf Queen quest, I wasn't getting the letter to begin with, I decided to say hell with it and abandon the entire quest line, and instead I joined the Companions, since one of their first quests lets you join a horde fight with a Draugr. All I have to do is hold back like cold steel, then punch the lights out of a barkeep. Surprisingly, Sam wasn't there, but oh well. Once I had my assistants, next up is Dustman's Cairn. Inside the dungeon, I brought out my heavily scaled up Dawnbreaker. It carves through a lot of the Draugr, plus it has effective damage, which helps out quite a bit. I watched Farkas wipe the floor with a cutscene Silverhand, and begin to mop the floor with them. Farkas is level 50 at this point, and he can definitely hold his own. Silverhands wear some decent heavy armor, but they cap out level 28, so not the most impressive. But then again, Silverhand are just reskinned bandits anyways. Nothing too much for the rest of the dungeon dive, except at one point I came across a hulking Draugr, which I don't think I've ever seen before. And not too different from the Scourges, so back to bed you go. As for the big arena fight at the end, the enemies range from all the variants from the Restless up to the Deathlord, though I think Deathlord was slightly more common than all the others. And I just kept on slashing away until the last Deathlord goes down, and for my efforts I joined the circle. They just hand out promotions like candy. Well, I think I'm good with the Companions for now, so I decided to go back to war because I remember about Seasons Unending. The first mission has me sneak into the back room of Mistwatch Keep, which is very easy for me to do because of perfect sneak, as if this quest was hard to begin with, and managing to extort some gold in the process because speech skill. Then with my good sneak skill I could constantly miss arrows on the guard and claim a caravan, and then there's also Fort Raid, but who cares about that. Next up is sneaking into a fort and taking it over, but first I had to deal with some seducer bandits. Sure, they are strong, but most Creation Club content never scales anyways, and they're static for the most part, and at these high levels might be the only source of difficulty. Well, a few of the others, this one's still not too bad. As for the fort itself, 100 sneak feels very good, and I give the guards a very rude awakening. Seems everyone here is weak sauce, and they go down really quickly, also doesn't help they're bunched up. And with all that done, we are already on the final mission. The Civil War is a very fast quest line. The final fort mission, everyone loves to hang out by some stairs, so I decided to look in a general direction and carve through all the forces. Just I have no idea who I was killing. As for the raid on Windhelm, I just charged right to the palace. An assassin's favorite place to be is in the alleys after all. I didn't care about the speeches, I just sit in a corner and stab the Jarl. As for Gallimar, stabby combo works like a charm. And then afterwards I checked their levels. Gallimar is level 30 and Ulfric is an undisplayed 50. I feed the Jarl cake, then wrap up the questline. Well, with not much left to do besides the big battle, I decided to get back on track in the main story and get that done. I traveled Karspire and dealt with the Forsworn, and the dragon here spawned has another legendary variant, so the battle is even more chaotic, I guess. Forsworn are slightly stronger than the regular bandits, capping at level 34. Sure, they do hit hard, but they don't have much in the way of defense. Yeah, sure, the dragon was getting melted by the army worth of Forsworn, but once a Forsworn registered the biggest threat, they piled upon my location, much to their dismay. Once they're all done, I could take out the dragon. As for the inside of Karspire, the Briarheart here is level 38 and they can get much stronger. This one is just weak sauce. Sadly I couldn't pick his hearts, but oh well. I guess throw a rush of easy puzzles, easy blood donations, and Dragon's Bane here being very strong, but I'm more the cloak and dagger type of player. Well, I got my information, enchanted some necklaces to help with super bosses, then traveled back to High Hrothgar to do more story stuff. As for the climb to the throat of the world, I met one Ice Wraith and 2 Frost Trolls, who are thankfully all weak to a dagger in the butt. I watched a very enthralling cutscene that I went to the bathroom for, and then started Alduin. So Alduin can be the strongest dragon in the game. The first Alduin might seem weak for me, but then again Alduin's level scales from level 10 up to level 100. Mind you, legendary dragons are at level 75. It might not seem like much because of how effortlessly I destroyed Alduin's health bar, though Alduin's stats are more akin to an ancient dragon overall. And probably for the rematch to make things more fair, I might have to up the difficulty. Also, when I went to talk to Party Snacks after the battle, are you okay, bud? Did you have too much to drink? Well, with nothing left to do, I think now it is finally time I have a date with Destiny. I climbed the mountain near Greenwald to the last vigil for a grand battle with the Ebony Warrior as a master assassin. I will just play out the battle in its full glory. Well, that was, very anticlimactic. How about I up the difficulty to Legendary and play the actual battle unedited? Yeah, that was a very funny fight. The legendary damage reduction can be very annoying, but I'm honestly surprised I could one-shot the Ebony Warrior without Berserker Rage on normal. Thankfully, I didn't have all that damage reflected onto me. And to be honest, if I bothered with Fortified Smithing with my daggers, it probably could have been a one-shot. Oh well. Since I had an easy time with the Ebony Warrior, I figured I could have a go at the other super boss Karstag. I returned to Solstheim, then began walking towards Castle Karstag, but first needing his skull. On the way there, I watched a fun Morrowind reference in Morrowind fanservice land. Once I got my skull, I entered the castle and just avoided all the Reeklings. They are pretty weak and only the mounted Reeklings are any threat. Anyways, let's see what normal will do for Karstag. And as a note, I do have max frost resistance. Yeah, that was also pretty easy. So I guess time for the legendary fight. I got unlucky as immediately I got ragdolled around, so I can't really choose him that way. Honestly, it's a little comedic. Well, for depleting his massive 4,000 health, I just kept on swinging away. And really the MVP of the fight is the lifesteal. I can keep topped up from all the Blizzard's effects and just continue to hack away. My weapon's stagger effect from the perks plus a high DPS can keep the Frost Giant stun locked indefinitely. I had to apply Soul Gem to my weapons occasionally, and really it wasn't that hard of a fight. Just hack away and eventually the giant is fallen, and I can claim my throne for myself. And with that, that is the 2 super bosses cheese on Legendary. It feels good to be overpowered. Well, time to wrap up the playthrough once and for all. I returned to Whiterun, can skip the boring Peace Council. Sucks because I was starting to get hungry, but oh well. I call my weak dragon, then begin Skuldolphin. Skuldolphin is rather infamous at high levels because nearly every enemy on the outside is a Deathlord, so that is very annoying. Also, the dragons here are the basic dragon, so just one power attack combo takes them out. The outside was just a series of sneak attacks, so getting ragdolled around really wasn't that fun. But with a few crouch stabs, I can clear out the outside party and enter inside. Here I am in my element, so it wasn't all that bad. Also, the first puzzle room didn't have any Deathlords, just most every other room did. Second section had a few grunts mixed in with the Deathlords, and for the boss of the place, instead of an Overlord, it was a Dragon Priest. Honestly, I'm surprised I didn't run into more of them. And crouch stabbing remains OP. As for the balcony, it was pretty easy cleaning up, and not green was still easy as hell. No idea why his health is at half when you see him, but oh well, even at level 81. As for the dragons, I decided to carve them to see how fast they go down, and yeah, it is pretty fast. Well, I entered Sovngarde, and if anyone asks, I never saw the Ebony Warrior here despite wanting to go to Sovngarde. I decided to bump up the difficulty to Legendary for the final battles, need a little excitement after all, for soon he was level 97, so quite the considerable opponent, but my counterpoint is stabby combo, and he goes down with ease. Well, I then got my companions for the final battle, then went outside to have a vocal conversation with the Fog. For the final Alduin fight, he was level 97 for me, so in other words, very dangerous. His fire attack nearly takes me out, but I have potions for days. For damage, his bite attack is static, but breath attack scales, so by closing the gap, I'm out of the danger zone, and despite having the legendary damage reductions, I can just carve right through him. Well, I sliced, I diced, and before too long the dragon explodes, finishing this New Game Plus excursion run. Well, that was interesting. I think the most intriguing part of the run was the early game, seeing strong enemies in places you normally wouldn't expect them. The legendary dragons were a pain in the butt, but really with the right prep work you can cheese Skyrim even on the hardest difficulty. but I don't like playing on the harder difficulties to begin with because enemies just become damage sponges. It's not like they're that bright to begin with anyways. Well, I had fun playing my assassin character, easily my favorite way of playing Skyrim, and hopefully you'll enjoy this slightly different run. Nothing to challenge me, just to see what's different in Skyrim. Hopefully y'all enjoyed this. I might make a part 2 for other questlines if y'all want, probably won't be for a bit. Otherwise, join me next time for a more festive run. If you like these runs, be sure to give a like, subscribe for more masochism and any other ways to torture myself, leave them down below. This has been Orpheolus, and see you all in the next one.